one important outcome for me, of having the FCC adopting a national broadband plan is, for years, I heard people complain, the FCC is lagging behind other countries because we don't have a broadband plan. So now we have a plan, so I don't have to listen to that argument again, which is really nice, I think. But it actually, I think the plan does do some important things in terms of broadband policy, and doesn't do some other things. But what I wanted to do was to take some aspects of the research that I've been doing over the last few years to think about how the plan can help and what the plan doesn't do necessarily as well. And so the three things that I wanted to talk about was consumer valuation of broadband, universal service, and spectrum policy. And I should probably start with my slides. So they did the National Broadband Plan, which Julia's talked about. You can find on the web at broadband.gov. So the three things, for me, the easiest part to talk about is this spectrum policy that Julia's talked about, getting 500 megahertz of spectrum. And pretty safe to say that sitting here today, almost everybody in this room has a cell phone, and probably the vast majority 15 years ago did not have a cell phone. For sure, you did not have one in your pocket 15 years ago. You would not have died 15 years ago if you had lost your cell phone or left it on the table like Ward did over here. But things have changed a lot. I'm going to take a minute to at least give you some amusing part of my talk. See if I can play this video for a minute to see where we've come from.
Back then, yeah. Those were simpler times, I think. I just feel like going back to that, by the way. But in a way, good, because when
I read things like
the foundations of capitalism are shattering, I'm like, maybe we need that. Maybe back then, yeah. Those were simpler times, I think. I just feel like we may be going back to that, by the way. But in a way, good, because when I read things like the foundations of capitalism are shattering, I'm like, maybe we need that. Maybe we need some time where we're walking around with a donkey with pots clanging on the sides.
You think that would just bring us back to reality?
Yeah, because everything is amazing right now, and nobody's happy. Like, in my lifetime, the changes in the world have been incredible. When I was a kid, we had a rotary phone. We had a phone that you had to stand next to, and you had to dial it.
Yes.
You don't realize how primitive, you're making sparks in a phone, and you actually would hate people with zeros in their numbers, because it was more... It's like, oh, this guy's got 2 zeros. Screw that guy. Why do I want to... Yeah. And then if they called and you weren't home, the phone would just ring lonely by itself. And then if you wanted money, you had to go in the bank when it was open for like 3 hours. You had to stand in line, write yourself a check like an idiot. And then when you ran out of money, you'd just go, well, I can't do any more things now. I can't do any more things.
That's it, yeah.
That was it. And even if you had a credit card, the guy would go, ugh, and he'd bring out this whole shunk, and he'd write,
yeah.
Oh, you have to call the president to see if you have any money. And
it's all true, kids. You had to call the president, yeah. It was ridiculous.
Yes.
Do you feel that we now, in the 21st century, we take technology for granted?
Well, yeah, because now we live in an amazing, amazing world, and it's wasted on the crappiest generation of just spoiled idiots that don't care, because this is what people are like now. They got their phone, they're like, ugh. It won't. Give it a second. It's going to space.
So I think
those were simpler times, I think. I just feel like we may be going back to that, by the way. But
stop that there. And I apologize to the students who maybe think they're part of that generation. But it was... Spectrum. This is, sort of things have changed a lot. We have Spectrum. People are, concerned about their iPhones. And now with the iPad, we're using an incredible amount of data. And we're getting a huge amount more demand for data usage. And there are 2 ways to increase the wireless capacity. Invest money in things like cell sites and new technology, or add more spectrum. And with this extra data, you have to worry about it. You want to try and figure out how can the government make sure that there's an efficient amount of provision of services. So one thing is to get more spectrum. And where is it being used right now? There's a lot of spectrum being used in what was called the killer app of 1950. Black television. We have a huge amount of spectrum devoted to television, over-the-air television. And right now, 90% of people get their television by paying for it. This is not using over-the-air television spectrum. 90% of people, and probably my guess is that those are the people who value television more, so probably more like 95% of watching is done not over the air. And we still have an average of 14, 15, 16 over-the-air television stations in a city. Well, if you say we need to make sure that people are connected and able to get information, you might need 1 or 2 television stations over the air, but not 15 or 16 to get it. And it's a very expensive way to make sure that everybody has a home shopping network channel on channel 36. So we need to, one of the keys and one of the things that they worked on really well on the broadband plan was trying to think about a way to provide incentives for the broadcaster to actually give up their spectrum, because the broadcasters are incredibly politically powerful. The way you get elected as a congressman is being shown doing good things on the local news, which is controlled by local broadcasters over the air. So they have a lot of political clout. So the FCC has tried to figure out a way where they could try to do an auction where the broadcasters actually get some or a lot of the money, but they actually give up some of the spectrum. So that's, wireless, I think, is a key thing that we need to do. But I don't want to focus on that right now. I want to talk about 2 other areas that I've done work in, which is willingness to pay. So the FCC hired 2 colleagues of mine at the University of Colorado, and we were asked to do a survey of the willingness to pay for broadband. How much do people actually value this broadband service that they get? So we did a paper for them called Household Demand for Broadband Internet Service. And there's a link down at the bottom. You can get it at the CEPR discussion papers to see the full paper. Given our time constraints, I'm only going to focus on a couple of things. We asked people, what we did was we got a group called Knowledge Networks that has a panel of broadband users to answer questions about what kinds of what do they want in broadband service. And so what we did was we gave them 2 hypothetical services, option A and option B. They had different prices, 25, and we had a whole bunch of different sets of options. So this is just an example where they had $25 a month or $45 a month. One was fast and one was slow. One was less reliable and more reliable. And we gave them a choice of preferring option A or preferring option B based on these characteristics, which we explained, and I'll show you that in a second. And then we said, okay, we also know about your home internet service because we asked them questions about their home internet service before, what the price was. And then we asked them, would you stay with your home internet service or prefer option B that you picked out between option A and option B?